Hey guys, it's Kevin again. You guys are probably wondering, why are you reviewing Gotham over the originals? Because you probably figured I was going to watch the originals right now and review it to you guys. Now, I was planning to. I was. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my CW, I went to the CW, and there's some sort of, game on tonight. I honestly don't know why they decided to do this. I was really pissed off of this. However, I decided I would watch Gotham live, so I am going to be viewing Gotham Season 1, Episode 7, Penguin's Umbrella. And, wow, if I had to pick any episode of Gotham to watch, this was the perfect episode to watch live, because I loved this episode. First of all, one of the things I love that Gotham did, they finally got rid of the procedural element. That is a huge plus for me on the show. The thing that was pissing me off the most was having the show be a procedural show. Many superhero shows, yes, they're procedural shows. The Flash is half procedural, half serial. Arrow's half procedural, half serial. Gotham, though, I didn't feel it worked as a procedural show. It works as a serial drama, and I'm glad that they finally got rid of the whole procedural stuff because I personally was not a fan of it. I didn't like it. And this episode was the perfect episode to watch live because it actually had a genuine plot. It was all about, it now has a genuine plot, and I thought that was great, and I love the way this episode ended, and by far the best episode of the season. Absolutely loved it, and just can't wait for the next episode, definitely. So let's just get to it. So basically we see Oswald. He's walking down the streets of Gotham with 2 bodyguards protecting him. Of course, everyone now knows that he's alive, and Fish quickly gets the news that he's alive and working for Maroni, and she's flipping out because 1, he was supposed to be working with her, 2, she wanted him dead. So my thing is here, though, she is really pissed here, and honestly, I really like Fish's character, definitely, after this. So, she tells her sidekick to bring Jim to her to explain why he didn't kill him, and Jim calls Barbara and tells her to get out, but then Harvey punches him, and obviously Harvey is very pissed off at Jim. I love the cliffhanger last week. I love the way they ended that, and the way they resolved that, was definitely very good. Harvey's obviously very pissed at Jim for what he did. He didn't think Jim would do something like this to me. He didn't think he'd screw him over like he ended up doing. And he's quite upset at what he did, definitely. You can tell he's pretty pissed at him. I mean, if I was in Harvey's situation and basically, Jim did sort of the same thing to me, I would probably be pissed as well. Because here's the thing. He lied directly to Harvey, and he has every reason to be mad at him. So he punches him, and he says he has to kill him, and takes his body to Falcone to save his own life, and I thought that was crazy. So Jim says he has a plan and asks him to help, but Harvey's refusing and threatens him, and Barbara's phone rings, but she doesn't answer it. Yeah, so Harvey pretty much is really pissing him. Now, we find out what Barbara's not answering, because Butch is there, and not letting her get it. And Barbara asks what they want. They tell her that Jim was supposed to kill someone, but then didn't, and someone is mad. So she says that Oswald and the guy tells her she's hip, and she says Jim is lucky, and then flirts with her, and then snuffs her. He asks if she's ever been with a criminal, and tells her it can be a turn-on. Jim comes in with a gun drawn, and tells him to back off. He's obviously not going to let them take Barbara. Obviously, he's not going to. I gotta say, a lot of people have been complaining about Barbara. I liked Barbara in this episode. I did. I know a lot of people don't like Barbara. They think she's really annoying. And honestly, to each his own with that, but I thought Barbara was actually a good character in this episode. I enjoyed her character. She didn't annoy me. There were things that I definitely thought it was good about her character. And the thing was, she was almost held hostage, and she was almost killed off. Now, I will say, out of every character on the show, she is definitely my least favorite, and the least interesting, in my opinion, definitely. I would agree with that. However, if I had to choose most hated characters on TV, Barbara would not be one of them. I do really like Barbara's character, and I think she's a good character overall. So, he says he knows he was told to bring him in alive or else he'd be dead already, and Jim tells him to have the other guy drop the gun or die, and he does. And Butch says he wanted to play it that way, and after they kill him, they'll kill her, and Jim shoots one, knocks the other out, takes her to the bus station, says she has to go. She says she can't leave him, but he says if she's safe, there's nothing they can do for him. He promises to come join her as soon as it's safe, and he tells her to never come back to Gotham, even if he doesn't make it. basically, if he doesn't make it, don't come back to Gotham. And she's crying, they hug and have a goodbye kiss. He puts her on the bus, watches it go to make sure she's really gone, because he knows that having her in Gotham is not safe anymore. And I thought that was really good, how far this was going. I mean, there's a war now. Like, there's seriously a war going on. He knows this because Oswald warned him about it. But there really is a war going on, A few episodes ago, I was a little sketchy about what Oswald was doing, but there actually is a genuine war going on. Even though he doesn't, I don't trust Oswald, especially after the end of this episode, I definitely do not trust Oswald. He did give a genuine warning to Jim, and because of that, definitely it's going to get very interesting, and I thought that was definitely really good. So he comes back to the police station, and everyone stops to stare at him. Everyone's staring at Jim, because they're obviously really upset at what he did. And they wonder why he's back and if he's gone off the rails, and he speaks loudly to Alvarez asking for a black warrant, and he hands a stick over to Jim nervously, and Jim takes them and goes, and then Fish goes to see Falcone, and he says, Penguin, Jim, and Harvey all need to die today. And I thought that was huge when she said that. I'm like, okay, that is extremely amazing. That is extremely huge. And Falcone says Penguin is a nobody and doesn't matter, and she says he was on her hip all the time and heard things, and he asks what, but she won't elaborate. So he asks where Jim is, and she says he's gone back to work. He says he'll send Victor to pick him up, and Falcone is playing with chickens, and Fish and Nico are wondering what he's up to. So, of course, Nico, as we know, is secretly working with Fish. Nobody realizes it, but he is working with Fish, and I honestly thought that was a great twist what they did, with that. I thought that was definitely very good what they did, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So, Nico says maybe Liza is making him happy, because as we know, Liza is pretending to work with him, and be on his side, but Fish says she just cooks and cleans, and he hasn't laid a hand on her. So Fish thinks he knows something he's not letting on, and she's getting very paranoid, but Nico says the old man is done, and they need to make a move. But she's not ready to really make a move. So Jim sits down his typewriter with the warrants, and Essen asks what he's up to, and he says he's arresting the mayor, Falcone, and their croonies, and she asks if he's insane. He says they're trying to kill him anyway, so he may as well try and make something happen. And Essen saying no one will help her serve or pursue the prosecutions, and she says she has a family to worry about and can't help him. And Essen tells him to get out of town, but he says this is home and his father's. And he says he's not leaving. And Victor shows up to the police station with some other muscles, and they rough up the cop. Victor steps up onto a desk and introduces himself. And, of course, this guy is awesome. I at first thought this guy was going to be part of a procedural plot, and he was going to be like a one-episode thing, which he kind of is. I don't think we're going to really see this guy again, but either way, this guy was legitimately awesome. Victor Zsasz was the character, who is an actual comic book character, and who I thought did a very good job on this show. I really enjoyed his character. I thought he was really good. And even though he was in one scene, he definitely served a purpose and was really good. So he says he's there just for Jim. He asks where Jim is, and everyone glances over so he knows where he is. Victor calls out tauntingly to Jim. He's like, Jim Gordon, come here. And he walks out of Essen's office. He tells him he can relax because Falcone wants him alive. And Jim wants to tell Falcone not today. And Victor says alive is a broad category and he can take him in without hands. And Jim says there are 50 cops there and to try it. And Victor tells them all to leave, and they go, Jim doesn't think this guy stands a chance, pretty much. So Jim tells Essen to go. She hesitates, but he says he can handle it. She leaves as well. Jim shoots at Victor. We get this really cool shootout scene here. I thought this was amazing. And keep in mind, we're only like 15 minutes in the episode, so it's really amazing here. He runs down to the motor pool with Victor, and the killer chicks close behind him. They go car to car looking for Jim. He's behind a SWAT van, bleeding and weak, and Victor calls out his name and whistles. And Victor looks under a car and then hears a noise, and Jim scrambles further away. So Jim creeps closer, and then a female cop sees him, and she wasn't in on the station incident. They shoot at her. He goes running, but takes a shot from Victor in the shoulder. And Chrysippus and Renee pull in and take on the bad guys and extract him from certain death. And the female cop is bleeding and crying and begs Victor for mercy. He shows her none, puts one in her head, then carves a new harsh mask indicating she's the 28th cop he's killed. And that was crazy what happened there, definitely. Like, this guy, I definitely feel we're going to see him again, because he's definitely part of the war, okay? We know there's a war going on, and I definitely feel this guy is part of it. I mean, he's so creepy. He is very well done. He's a very menacing villain. I thought that was definitely really good. I love when we can get a good menacing villain. Gotham is not a show that's had a lot of really good menacing villains, and this was definitely one of them. They're doing a great job with this character, definitely. So, Jim wakes up in a complete shock. He's completely shocked, and the doctor's asking how he feels. She says that she is a friend of Renee and Chrysippus, and she says she took 2 bullets out of him and sewed him up. He asks why there are rats, and she says it's a dissection lab at the university, and she says he was very lucky that all vital organs were missed, and she says he has to lie down or die, but he insists that he has to go. So Alan tells him it's okay, but says he needs paints, and Fish then tells Maroni that snitches need stitches and he needs to hand Oswald over. And he says he gets that, but says Oswald amuses him, you know, because he kind of likes Oswald. He's using him pretty much. We know that, you know, Maroni doesn't really take Oswald seriously, so I get what he's saying here. She asks if he wants to start a war over him. He asks why he's so important. He calls Penguin out and tells him to not be afraid of Fish. Maroni tells him that Falcone and Fish feel respected by him. And Penguin says he never, you know, Oswald said he never met that. And Maroni tells him to offer a sincere apology. He does, and Maroni says that's not good enough. Fish tells him it will be bloodshed and says that works for her. So she calls Oswald a scaly-faced bitch and tells him torture is too nice of a word for what she's going to do to him. She's very pissed at him, definitely, that he's alive because she wanted him to die. And he says he's sorry she feels that way. Calls her Fish, and Fish says probably one of the most genius lines I've heard her say. I have not been a fan of Fish's character, really. I really haven't. I don't think she's really been a very menacing villain. But this line made her very menacing. And I really like what she said. And it legitimately creeped me out. It was a legitimately creepy line. And it was a badass line, too. She was awesome. You know, she's like, only my friends call me Fish. Like, that was an awesome line, what she said. And I love that. So, basically, we see that, when Frankie seems less than happy, Maroni's laughing at it. He thinks it's the funniest thing ever. So a car pulls up beside a group of nuns that are walking by, and it's Butch, and he asks them how it's hanging. By the way, Frankie not really laughing. I feel like Frankie does care about Oswald and might end up working with him. I just feel like that's what's going to happen. So Maroni moving truck speeds up under an overpass and finds a group of nuns handcuffed to the road. They take their cargo and tell the guys that Falcone said none of Maroni's stuff gets across the bridge. They shoot the guards in the leg and said that is until he gives Oswald back. And Oswald asks why they want him back. And Maroni says he's a golden money-making goose and they don't want him to have him. So Frankie says maybe they can pay Falcone off. And Oswald says since the other crew is number 1, it's the safer option. And this provokes Maroni into saying they're going to fight back as Oswald wanted. And Oswald says he knows exactly where to hit them. Maroni claps him on the back. And Renee offers Jim a sincere apology. You know, she was not happy with Jim, really. She was very upset with him. And honestly, the whole thing with her being very suspicious of him was ridiculous. You know, the way she was handling it last week was ridiculous. And I'm glad she apologized to him because I didn't really like seeing Renee being so ridiculous and so suspicious over him. So, basically, she says her feelings for Barbara were in the mix, and he says it's okay. And suddenly, Alan's face is at the window, being held by Alfred, and Jim says it's okay. They go inside Wayne Manor, and we get a very sad scene, because Jim tells Bruce he may not be able to find his parents' killer. Because, first of all, speaking of this, where the fuck is Selena? She's not in this episode. I don't know what happened to Selena, but she's not in this episode for whatever reason. And because of that, we get no advancement in that plot, which is, you know, the only complaint really in this episode. And basically, Bruce tells him to say the truth and not treat him like a child, but says he may not make it, though. And he says Renee and Chrysippus will take over the investigation if he dies, and tells him he can trust him, and Bruce thanks them. And I love that this whole episode, Jim thinks he's going to die. He pretty much does, because he doesn't have Harvey, so he's pretty sure that he's going to die from this. That's what's going to happen. So Alfred asks how they can help Jim, and he says he has to go it alone, and Alfred says he can hardly walk, but Jim says he'll be fine. And Bruce hugs him, and Oswald then leads some armed men into a warehouse area. This is a really awesome scene. He points him a specific warehouse. Frankie puts a bomb on the warehouse doors and blows spectacularly. The men follow up with a machine gun fire. Oswald limps in after them smiling. He says he told them it would be easy. There are drugs and cash there. And Frankie says Oswald is a snitch and not a golden goose and says he should shoot him and blame it on one of Nico's guys. And Oswald says Frankie's problem is his motivation. And Oswald asks what drives him. Says if you know that you can control him, he says he knows he loves money more in respect to power and calls Frankie a cheapskate. And the other guys grab Frankie and Oswald, says he doesn't pay his people enough, and there's no loyalty among thieves. So they stab Frankie repeatedly. Oswald explains giving them a small pay raise made Frankie's greatest passion his greatest weakness. He tells Frankie that love conquers all, and Frankie's dead. So that was very surprising. And basically, Frankie's dead because he was weak. He wasn't tough like all the other ones, and that's why he died, because he was pretty much just a weakling. So they can't have a weakling because there's nothing that a weakling's going to do for them. So I thought that was definitely really surprising, but definitely a very well done, handled death. I definitely really enjoyed that because he wasn't a huge character, but I was surprised he died. I thought he was going to end up working with Oswald, but he didn't. So the other thugs are mystified at this weird action because they didn't, because he just randomly kissed Frankie's head, which still makes me think that Oswald is gay. I still think that because of what he did. So later, Maroni and Falcone meet and swap hugs. And Falcone, and I thought this was an amazing scene because, of course, this war is Maroni versus Falcone. That's how this whole war started. And he says he lost Nico and Maroni lost Frankie. Because, Falcone thinks Nico's dead when he's not. He's really working with fish. And Falcone says they need peace and tells Maroni that he can have Oswald as a gift. And he asks for something in return. And Falcone asks for a warehouse on the river. Now, Maroni says he doesn't like Oswald that much, and Oswald steps up, whispers in his ear. Maroni says he can have Indian Hill, and Fish tells them it's in Arkham and is a toxic waste dump and worthless, and Falcone says he'll take it as a gesture of respect, and Maroni says he heard Victor shot up the PD and asked if he found Jim. And Falcone says they're working on it, and Maroni says there's nothing more dangerous than honest man. And then Jim arms up, loads guns, prepares when there's a knock on the door, and it's Harvey. And I thought this was great. Who tells him he's not there to kill him. He introduces him, and he introduces this, really weird, random girl that he's with. She's on the heavier side, definitely. And tells her to go change into her birthday suit. And Harvey says he thinks Jim is a douchebag, but has the moral high ground, so he's decided to join him since he's going to die anyway. So I thought that was really good. He wants to be with him when he dies. He thinks he's deserving. He's really pissed at him, but he's gonna, be with him because pretty much he thinks he's gonna die. So I thought that was definitely really well written, in my opinion. So he says how he's planning on arresting the mayor and Falcone, and Harvey asks how much crap he smoked to come up with that plan. And Harvey says he's game since he's doomed anyway, and goes to get busy with that Duchess, his pay-by-the-hour lady friend. And next day, they arm up and approach the mayor's limo. Jim hops in, and this was just when the episode got completely awesome. The episode was already awesome, but this made it 10 times better. They offer the arrest warrant, and the mayor says that's not funny. Harvey turns around wearing the chauffeur's hat and says, that depends on where you're sitting. And the mayor's limo rolls up to Falcone's house, and the mayor says he's there for a chat, so they let him through. And Jim brings the mayor in wearing handcuffs, and I love Jim. He's just like, Don Falcone, you're under arrest. And basically, Harvey has his men under guard, and Falcone says he won't make it past the drive, and Jim says it's a lawful arrest, so if he shoots him, it's fine. And Falcone asks Jim if he would be so brave if he had a knife to Barbara's throat. And Jim says he's lying because, of course, he sent Barbara away, so he pretty much thinks Barbara's okay. And I was thinking, is Barbara really that stupid that she'd actually get a knife to the throat? Barbara does seem like she would do something like that. She seems like she's a very stupid individual. She's not a smart person. I think Barbara would definitely do that. So he says Victor is Barbara because she came back to beg him for Jim's life, and Jim says to prove it, but Falcone says he won't, and Harvey says he's lying, and Falcone says to believe him or not, and says Barbara will be killed in a horrible way even if Jim dies. And then Liza is making muffins, and tells Victor he can't have one. She calls him a creep, but offers a muffin to Barbara, who says no thank you. And Victor gets a call and tells Barbara it's a shame. Victor brings Barbara in tied up, and yes, they do have Barbara. Harvey tells Jim he's killed them. They have given up, and Falcone says Jim needs to die, and the mayor says he needs to get to work. So Falcone tells Jim he's not the enemy, anarchy, is the enemy. And I thought that was a very good line, because basically, it's all about anarchy. That's what the enemy is here. So, Falcone says today was a good first step since he finally believes what he says, and he tells him to go unharmed before he changes his mind. And Victor protests, but Falcone tells him to stow it. And Falcone tells Barbra he admires a strong woman, and Jim asks what the catch is, and Falcone says he wants him to understand the truth and tells Jim soon he'll see that he's right about Gotham. So, at home, Jim is living inside and finds Barbra crying. She tells him she's sorry and she was just trying to help. He kisses her and says she loves him so much, and they embrace, and I thought that was very good because, they've had a lot of problems, definitely, and it's good to see that they've kind of patched things up. So, Falcone sits eating one of Liza's muffins and complains about, compliments her cooking, and she tells him he was right that cooking is easy. He apologized for the unpleasantries earlier, and she says she knows that business is business. He goes to check on his chickens, and we get the best scene of the episode. This was by far the best scene of the episode, and in my opinion, probably the best twist of the season so far. I thought this was such an amazing twist, and definitely makes Oswald my favorite character by far. So Oswald's waddling up to the coop in the rain, and Falcone hugs him, he calls him friend, and says he was just thinking about the night they met. And I was like, what? How do these two know each other? Because they've never had any real interaction on the show before now, according to, what we've seen before. However, we then see a flashback of Falcone talking to Oswald. This is from the first episode. Remember when he had Jim, tied up? Yeah, this is when they first met. He's talking to Oswald and asking what he can tell him before he kills him, and Oswald says he can tell him a secret of great value in exchange for him assigning his death to Jim Gordon, and he says he's the only one with a conscience. He tells Falcone that he was the one that told, Oswald to come back to Gotham and warn his way into the Maronis and snitch for him. Basically, this is Oswald's plan. He is basically being a mole for, Falcone. He thinks he's working with Maroni, but he's really working with Falcone. And that is an awesome twist because I had no idea what was going on, and I definitely really love that twist. So, he says he has a gift for this. Falcone says it's a deal, and Oswald thanks him. He tells Falcone the big secret, and he finally tells him the big secret here, that Fish and Nico are pretending to hate each other, but are lovers, and that Fish is pushing Nico to take his place so she can then take over from Nico. And Falcone says that is a good secret, and now Falcone tells Oswald he does have a gift and says things have played out just like he said, and Falcone says he isn't sure about letting Jim live, but Oswald says it was necessary and says that Jim will see the light one way or another. And what a great way to end the episode. Oh my god, guys, this was by far the best episode of the season. I absolutely loved it, and let's talk about a few things. First of all, they are going to kill Jim, definitely. Well, no, they're not going to kill Jim because he's the main character of the show. But there's also the whole thing of them working together. I love that twist. I think that's an amazing twist. Now, the thing is, of course, they're not going to kill Jim. He's the main character. We know that they're not going to kill him. So, definitely Falcone and Oswald are going to, or Oswald, they're going to die. I think Falcone might die. I don't know. We'll have to see. But, I love Victor's character. I think he's a very good menacing villain. I love what's going on with, Falcone and Maroni, definitely. Do you think they're going to start? Definitely this war is going to start. It's going to be very intense to see what happens there. As far as Falcone and Liza goes, she definitely is doing a very good job on Fish's plan, basically. Because, Fish was the one that told her to do all this, and I think she definitely is doing a very good job with that. Also, do you think Harvey is going to fully forgive Jim? I don't think he has yet, but I think he will fully forgive him eventually. We'll have to see what happens there. Have Barbra and Jim patch things up? I think they pretty much have, but I guess we'll just have to see. Is Oswald going to successfully, be a mole for Falcone? I eventually feel he's going to work for Falcone full-time, because right now he's working for Maroni and Falcone. It's a lot like The Departed, but, it's a lot like The Departed with, Leonardo DiCaprio's, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Departed. But I definitely feel he's going to work for Falcone full-time, and I definitely really love that. But overall, guys, this episode was amazing. By far, best episode of the season. Let me know what you guys saw this episode, and I will see you guys in my next video, which I promise you guys my next video will be for the originals. I'm sorry I didn't get that review up, but it wasn't on for me, so I couldn't do anything about it. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.